He, that being Jesus, put before them another parable. The kingdom of heaven may be compared to someone who sowed good seed in his field, but while everybody was asleep, an enemy came and sowed weeds among the wheat, and then went away. So when the plants came up and bore grain, then the weeds appeared as well. And the servants of the householder came and said to him, Master, did you not sow good seed in your field? Where then did these weeds come from? And he answered, An enemy has done this. And the servants said to him, Then do you want us to go and gather them? But he replied, No, for in gathering the weeds, you would uproot the wheat along with them. Let both of them grow together until the harvest. And at the harvest time, I will tell the reapers, Collect the weeds first and bind them in bundles to be burned, but gather the wheat into my barn. I often wonder why Jesus uses so many agricultural analogies, so many agricultural images in his parables when he was a carpenter. And I sometimes wonder why we don't hear a lot more about buildings and sawing and nailing and whatever carpenters do. But maybe it was an uncle who was a farmer, maybe he had friends who were farmers, but he seems to gravitate towards agricultural, again, analogies, like he does today. There's a farmer who sows seed in the field, and it's good wheat, and it's to feed the family and the village, and as that good wheat grows, there are weeds in its midst, and the farmer's assistants say, should we pull up the weeds? And he says, no, because in pulling up the weeds, you'll also pull up the wheat, and then we'll have nothing. We'll separate them at the end. And I think it is a analogy. It may work for agriculture. I'm far removed from farming, although there are those here in our midst who do such a wonderful job at gardening and farming and planting. But I think this actually is an analogy that works great for life. And it's probably about your life and about my life. And what I mean by that is if you were at the cathedral last week or you heard online the sermon from last week, Pastor Laura reminded us that in all these analogies, the sower is God. And so God sows good seed on good soil. And that good seed is you. And that good seed is me. That good seed is you. That good seed is me. And our lives, this creation is the good soil. And it works as an analogy for life because you and I have lived long enough, and you don't have to live very long to know that we may be good wheat and we may be on good soil, but there are weeds in life. And some of those weeds are, well, they're sort of mundane or they seem important at the moment, but they can be done away with. We didn't get into the class with our best friend. We are in the homeroom with our best friend. In my case, we bought a house and discovered we needed $15,000 of plumbing work more to do. It's a weed, right? And it'll get fixed. And sometimes those weeds are a little more serious and a little more important. Relationships that are struggling. Work that is no longer fulfilling. And sometimes weeds are just darn right serious. Medical diagnoses that we weren't expecting. Moves that we had to make that were unaccounted for. And in all these cases, whether they're mundane or they're sort of medium or they're serious weeds, they entangle in our roots, don't they? They get in our lives and they sort of begin to sap energy from us. And so if Jesus is talking about the good God who plants good seed and waters that seed with grace and with love and plants in love and with grace. We also know that life isn't always weedless. But where Jesus does not, where I think this analogy fails, and I'm prepared to stand before the Almighty and argue this, but I'm going to try it on you first. Where I think Jesus fails in his analogy is this: sometimes you have to pull the weeds. Sometimes you just have to dig deep, and it hurts, and it's going to pull on those good weeds that feed you and give you energy, those good roots that feed you and give you energy, but you know you have to remove that weed because it's killing you, or it's hurting, or it's sapping energy, or it's making school a miserable place. And all of us who have been through medical diagnoses know that, thank God for people who will pull weeds for us and restore our health and restore and feed our roots. But here's the truth of the analogy, and here's the truth of the parable. Whether Jesus was a carpenter or a farmer doesn't really matter. The truth is, the sower plants good seed. And the sower plants good seed in good soil. And that good seed that God plants on this planet is you. And your lives are good soil. And it's wise to remember, the invitation of Jesus is to remember that when we discover those weeds in our midst, you just have to look around you and see all the good wheat that is growing around you and with you, and it can hold you and support you through those times. And when weeds grow and we recognize them in our lives, may we never forget, ever forget, that this God of love planted you in love, that this God of grace planted you and waters you with grace, that this God is the God who never forgets, and a God who loves you and me because we are all good wheat. Amen.